the panel is back. Nan, why is the president so quiet now that the stock market's down?
Well, you know, obviously it's much happier to talk about when the stock market goes up. However, and I will say this much, when the stock market was reaching these new highs, he was not alone in saying there's a lot of enthusiasm built in because people are perceiving, anticipating and recognizing in real time the benefits of regulatory cuts and tax cuts. Of course, the tax cuts more of an enthusiasm and a promise, although they are starting to take effect now. But when the market goes down, it goes down in this kind of circumstance. It's probably going down because it frankly has been overheated for quite some time. And there is going to be some, as Jeb Hensarling said, repricing of risk. That's not a bad thing. Americans are going back to work. Wages are rising. There's some concern on the part of investors in equities that there may be an inflationary risk. The Fed is going to start probably raising interest rates.
But is he's only responsible for when it goes up, not when it goes down?
No, and I don't, I don't derive that from his comments one way or the other. I think he was proud to and happy to say, hey, the stock market's going up, as he has talked about Americans going back to work and all sorts of other good things.
It's ridiculous for any president to wrap their arms around the stock market one way or the other. Stock market doesn't really matter to most Americans. 2/3 of Americans don't have anything in their 401ks or retirement savings accounts. And Nan, you mentioned wage growth. The market is responding to threats of an increase in inflation. If you break down those wage growth numbers, you know, the professions with the largest increases in wage growth are management and financial services. Manufacturing wages are barely keeping pace with inflation, and that's what the president, if he should be worried about one thing, should be worried about that, because those are the people that elected him president, not the people who are watching the stock market every day.
Well, I wanted to add real quick though that I think that what we're seeing now could be some danger signs about what it does when we govern with stimulus fiscal policies in a time of near full employment. That's what the tax cuts were. That's a stimulus style fiscal policy that's meant to kind of juice the market, and we didn't really need it. And when wages rise, historically investors have freaked out because they've thought it's a harbinger of inflation. And inflation causes the Fed to raise rates, which makes money more expensive for businesses to buy and governments to lend. And then as a result, the market tanks, and then companies that are part of the market end up having to cut back and fire people. So it's this kind of dangerous cycle that we're in right now. And I don't know if it's going to complete itself, but I was not feeling very great about what we saw yesterday.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, we see market volatility all over the place. You know, if you asked somebody 2 years ago what Bitcoin was, they wouldn't know what it is. Now we have places that aren't allowing you, companies that don't allow you to buy it with your credit card, questions of security, and whether or not AML Bitcoin is a place to go as a you know, more positive alternative. There are a lot of people who have a lot of questions all over the range on the economy. And while this isn't a long-term problem from what we saw yesterday and Friday on the stock market, it suggests that people are asking the right questions, at least finally.
And Doug, it's an argument for good consumer protection laws and enforcement, right? Because when you have these speculated bubbles out there, you need a strong government regulator.
It's an argument for rationalizing government spending and debt, which this administration is actually addressing realistically, and the antecedent one did not at all, and in fact doubled our national debt.
Just add $1.5 trillion of tax cuts that we haven't fully paid for. Into
those, I can assure you from my career in politics, or my micro career in politics, my experience, that those dollars in the hands of American consumers and investors will go far farther than they would in the hands of the government, and they belong to us.
That's the last word. Thank you, Nan, and thank you, everybody.